Hi folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, we've talked more this year than we have in the past about trout fishing, and there's reasons for that. I have some wonderful information that comes to me from Aaron Hardy, and I ran into Tim Damon the other day, who I used to get so much information from, but I know he hadn't been feeling well, and I didn't want to suppress him with, too much pressure. But anyway, Tim told me that he had recently been fishing the Salmon River in Malone and had some wonderful luck. So, we still have great trout fishing, but the one thing I want you to be aware of, and a lot of people don't realize this, is that trout fishing in New York State in our inland waters ends October 15th. Now it continues as catch and release right through the winter. And there's already several catch and release sections of a lot of our favorite rivers that are just throughout the whole year where all you can do is catch and release and use artificials. And that's a big point. You can only use artificials from this point on once it becomes October 16th. And what does that mean? It means you either got to fly fish or perhaps spinners would be your best bet, because these trout are going to hit spinners all year long. They love that flash. Something about it just, they can't resist. But anyway, for you folks that haven't been trout fishing, the Salmon River is a wonderful place. And right now the fishing is pretty good. We've talked about the low water conditions in other waters and how when the water temperature comes up, it really affects trout. They need colder water, and you have to be aware of this. But the other thing you might not be aware of is most fish spawn, it seems to be in the spring. But lake trout in particular spawn in the fall. And because of this, a lot of waters are protected in the fall. You can't catch lake trout during their spawning period. And I think this is a good idea because they're going to be most vulnerable at this time. They're going to move into the shallows to the areas that they do spawn. But we have wonderful trout fishing throughout the whole state, and especially in the foothills of the Adirondacks. My goodness, we've got wonderful trout fishing. But be aware that you can't go and use worms now. Now, most fishermen know that if they put worms on their hook, they're going to have a chance of catching just about anything. And that certainly is the case with trout. When I grew up as a kid fishing in the Genesee River, that's what I used most of the time was live bait. And I'm not against that. I think that carries over to me. I remember all the wonderful times of using live bait. You can still do that right now until October 16th. But just be aware that season does end at that time. And we'll try to fill you in with as much information we can on the trout fishing as time goes on. I had mentioned to you before that there were good reports of some nice brown trout being caught in the Chateauguay River. Now, that isn't all that accessible, and one of the places I used to fish was right along Route 11 before it goes into Chateauguay. There's a huge, steep hill that goes down to the water, and for those fishermen that are willing to make that trek down, there's a really good section of water there. But my goodness, the climb back up is a severe one, especially if you've got waders on. It's something to be aware of. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.